Charles, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Steve Pearlstein's article was much too kind, and you should all know that the day that it appeared, I got a phone call from my best friend who asked me where in my past I had come up with pictures of Steve in a compromising position that led to his writing that article. It's a pleasure to be here today and a distinct honor to have the opportunity to introduce our featured speaker. When I got to thinking about why I was accorded the honor of introducing Justice O'Connor, it occurred to me that there were two possible reasons. The first, as Charles Kolb indicated, is that I'm a business school dean, and while an independent judiciary is important to every single citizen in the United States, it's perhaps particularly important to the business community that wants more than anything not to be shaken down by candidates running for judge positions. And for that reason, it could be that I was given this happy opportunity. However, as Charles also mentioned, I spent 34 years in Washington, D.C. prior to coming here, and that gives me two sorts of insights that may have qualified me for this opportunity. The first of all is that I'm quite acquainted with the Committee for Economic Development. Charles was modest in describing the organization. I will say that in my long time in Washington, I saw more business organizations than one could shake a stick at. Almost all of them provided some sort of facts into the lawmaking and regulatory process, but they were always quite selective sets of facts, fairly so because they were trying to advance partisan interests. The Committee for Economic Development is quite a different animal, and it's more than 65 years history. It's involved the very best of the business community. It has had on its staff outstanding economists and other researchers, and really has a kind of credibility in Washington that one doesn't see of many types of organizations, much less a business organization. That 34 years that I spent in Washington, D.C. gave me another opportunity, particularly delightful, and that is that with the exception of about 6 months, my 34 years in Washington completely overlapped with Justice O'Connor's time in Washington. And I can say that the state of Arizona's gain has been Washington's loss, because I don't think you could find a single person in Washington who didn't feel that during her 25 and a half years there, that they hadn't been graced by her intelligence, even-handedness, fair-mindedness, and even sense of humor, a characteristic that perhaps is not often associated with justices of the Supreme Court, but it's true. She was a blessing to Washington in her entire time there, and Washingtonians miss her greatly. Now, in my experience, and I would guess in the experiences of many of you, the most boring and long-winded introductions always follow the words, "Our next speaker needs no introduction." So please forgive me when I say only that it's my distinct privilege to introduce our next speaker, who has been an economics student, a law student, a practicing attorney, an Arizona state senator, an Arizona county and then appellate judge, and a very distinguished member of the United States Supreme Court, not to mention a wife and mother. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.